Good morning, everyone. How are we all doing? Got Leon, Cairo, and Ioana in the chat. Oh, which button is it? Come on. This one. There we go. Oh, God. So scruffy today. Till morning. I guess it depends on your internal clock. My internal clock is still in morning. I'm so lazy in the weekends. I mean, I literally got up like half an hour ago, so... Stayed up a bit too late. I was playing Red Solstice. This new game that I bought over the weekend. It's been pretty fun. Hey, Einar, hey, Joshua. Good morning. I've been fiddling with the name of the channel, and I'm trying to make it a little bit more like understandable from the get-go. What do you guys think? Like about Sunday feedback? Or because before it was always like AMA, like AMA sessions or something like that. And I feel like it got people confused and people didn't know what it was. So I'm trying to simplify the naming. So I'm all ears for some suggestions. Oh, another good question. Did the Steam Summer Sale get you? I honestly think that... Wait, what was I gonna say? Like, I'm losing my train of thought here. I never got sucked into those summer sales because I'm so deliberate with the money that I spent. I think what I did do was a couple of Steam summer sales. I bought the entire collection of Fallout, like including the older ones too. And I haven't played the older ones, like Fallout 1 and 2, but that's probably it. Same for me with the Fallouts. I still want to play them though. I still want to give them a shot. I just need to be, I don't know, in the right mindset, in the right mood. Because I still see them pop up every now and again. But it's just one of those things where I need to be in the mood for like a top-down, more tactical thing. Got me Doom Eternal with the DLC to replay. Oh man, I haven't played Doom Eternal. I played the first one though. It was a freaking blast. I love the music in that game. Favor me with the Fallouts. You got Lego Builder's Journey. That game honestly looks so good. Just looks, like you said, like nice and calming. It's like a little puzzle game, right? Bum, bum, bum. Bought Inside after playing Limbo. I played Inside too. Inside is a really good game. I really enjoyed that. The start in that game is so good. There's Somerville. I don't know if you checked that game out. That has the same sort of style as Inside and is currently being worked on. I recommend to check out that game. Going back to the channel name, I think Sunday feedback is better than whatever it was with questions because that was confusing. Yeah, I think Sunday feedback could be interesting. Because I also want to do more pictures than questions over time. Or like maybe discuss the questions a bit quicker than I've been doing up until this point. As far as the channel name, I think something about live stream would still be better so that the people know in what form the feedback is going to happen. Weekly live stream. Yeah, I'll have to think about it because I think Sunday feedback for the channel name could be good. And then whenever I open the channel every Friday, I think it is, I can have that as like weekly live stream information or something on the embed message that I do. Because right now there's also just way too much information in there. I need to cut that down to like a bullet point or two. Modi G. New suggestion for Sunday feedback name, Weekback. It's gonna make it even more confusing for people. Weekback. I don't know about Somersville, it looks cool. Hell yeah. Yeah, it looks right up my alley. Like, I honestly wasn't expecting to enjoy Inside too much. Or I mean, I honestly didn't know what to expect when I was going in. But I enjoyed it so much that I'm keeping my eye out for games like that now. I didn't play Limbo because I watched it. So I kind of ruined that experience for myself. Give that bot some BE branding if that's possible. I'm freaking annoyed by that. I currently have no idea how to do that. I've been looking into it, but there's probably a way. I'll just need to have a better look at it. Because it's bothering the hell out of me too. There is something that I can do, but it's currently fucking up how the bot reacts and all that stuff, so it's kind of confusing. I'll have to take a deeper look into it. But that's a good suggestion though. Alright, cool. What is it? Where am I looking? 12 minutes in. I think let's dive into some questions. Hey Y3, right on time, man. Gonna dive into some questions now. First off, we have 2 anonymous questions, so I'll start with those. Let's have a look. That's the one that I already answered. Can you talk a bit about job stability and job security and your experiences with it? Yeah, sure. I've always been in a super secure position. I mean, I've never got fired. I've never been in a position where that was on the table or I had to fear for getting fired, right? So take this with a grain of salt, because I mean, my experience has been really good up until this point. I've always had the opportunity to join studios that were really stable, right? Like Frontier and Ubisoft, they're really stable. And they don't have the typical what is that called? Where they bloat for production and then let people go after production. So they hire like lots of contract workers. That doesn't happen with the studios that I worked for. There are still contracts like in the beginning when I joined Ubisoft, for example, or I don't know if that was the case with Frontier, but when I joined Ubisoft, it was a temporary contract. It wasn't a permanent one yet. It was like a yearly contract that I started out on, and then during that year, I got offered a permanent contract. But I would say, yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, Polygon. Welcome to the chat. Is that it varies so much from place to place. From my point of view, it's currently the way that it's seen in the industry is that it's probably in general, if we go on like if we stroke it with like a broad brush, I would say that America is known for those practices, right? Where they have bloating cycles and then let people go. Same also happens with Eastern European countries at the moment. I mean, we always have the bigger studios that are in the news, right? So that's where I'm kind of biased to what's in the news when it comes to that. But yeah, because it's not only like job stability that they offer you a contract, right? It's also the amount of working hours that they want you to do. If that is like a consistent thing, that you're working way more hours than you were expected to, that's also that also has something to do with job stability, but not from the business side, but from your personal side. Because you can't keep doing that for all too long. So yeah, it does vary so much from place to place. But I honestly think that the industry in general, as weird as this sounds, because we're a fucking massive industry at the moment when it comes to the income that we have compared to other entertainment industries, is that we're still learning. We're still on a trajectory where we're looking at how to do things and make it more stable for the people that work within it. That's also one of the trends that you're currently seeing now, is that people are somewhat tired of working in the bigger companies, and they break away from the bigger companies and then start their own smaller indie studios because they want to make that more stable for themselves, right? But yeah, I mean, who knows, right? Because even with that mindset, if you're doing your own business compared to what you were doing before as like a lead or something like that, is you have to take on the business side of things too, right? So yeah, I've heard stories where people do this thing. They're a bit tired of working in the big studios, and they start up their smaller indie startups with like a team that breaks away from the bigger studios, and then they go through their own learning process, right? Where they have to have business deadlines, and they have to learn a lot of stuff on the way too. Even with contract work, it varies so wildly in the length of the contract terms. Some places offer a month's work, some a few years. Oh yeah, that's actually a good point to bring up. From what I've seen, usually how it works is they always offered me, let's just look at my position, right? They always offered me a yearly contract with a 6-month probation period. That seems to be the standard. And then after that, they will think about like maybe adding like another year to it, or maybe they do like a permanent thing. But there's definitely places where those lengths of contracts are shorter. Sometimes they even have like a shorter what's it called, probation period, and then have just like, I don't know, like half a year contract or something like that. But yeah, I never really worked for a company that that had like these short-term contracts. So yeah, my experience is a bit limited on this. But there are places that are more known for being a bit more rigid with their contracts. Like if, say for example, if they offer you a yearly contract, you have to be the best out of the entire bunch to stay on to the team. Then they kind of use it as like a selection of the best people in the team, from what I've heard as an outsider, right? I think things are changing too now. I'm seeing lots more remote work contracts. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm really curious where that's gonna go. Like as as the industry in general, right? Because I think a lot of companies are gonna try their own way with like hybrid models or maybe fully remote, and then maybe some of them will go back to full-time in office. So I think there's going to be more diversity when it comes to picking a place to work and how that place works, right? I think it's going to be really interesting in the future, where you could potentially live in a different part of the country. I don't know, like in a shack in the hills with good internet, of course, and then just work from there. That's the one good thing to come from COVID. Companies are more open to having people on site. Both models, fully remote and offices, give you so many advantages and disadvantages. Yeah, exactly. I agree. And in the beginning, I was sort of biased towards the fully remote part because I was always like, oh man, I just want to work from home. I want to try the whole freelancing thing as well. I was always super interested in that. But now that now that we've all been going through it, I don't know. It's like you said, there's advantages and disadvantages, because I do miss the team. I do miss the people that you're surrounded by, but then it is freaking nice to just, well, at a certain degree, like get out of bed, get on your PC, don't have to commute for like, in my case, like 2 hours a day, and oof. I'm a big fan of working from home. I think a lot of people simply cannot afford to relocate, particularly when they're starting out. Yeah. I mean, yeah, without the support of my parents in the beginning, I probably couldn't either. Because like you said, right, like I could be self-sustaining once I got there, but it was just moving there. And like the first month was a little bit tricky. But yeah, there's also like the opposite spectrum to it, right? Where I really felt good when I entered like an office. Like especially in the beginning, when you go to the office and you have to go to a physical location and you see all the creative work that's happening around you. That is something that probably sticks with me as like the biggest change, because it had this feeling of like, man, I'm finally here. And this is what I've been working for these amount of years, right? So it's kind of unfortunate that a lot of people are missing out on that feeling that I had in the beginning. I mean, it might still happen, right? They might work a bit and then have that feeling once they go back to the office, but yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. I've been thinking about this. I know that we're going on a bit of a tangent here. I still need to get through some other questions. But the thing that I'm thinking about is, how are we going to deal with the hybrid workflow, or like a hybrid office where as a junior, let's say as a junior getting in the industry, they want you to be in the office and they want you to link up with a team. But that means that other people from the team need to also be in the office, right? So how is that going to work? Is it going to be like a 2-week period where the entire team needs to be in the office to onboard like a new person and to just get them into the industry? I think that could be really beneficial. But then you got the opposite side, where as a senior in that position, you could be, I mean, not forced. You're asked to come into the office more often than you intended to do, right? It's going to be interesting going forward, for sure. I think a lot of people aren't feeling that way because they got into the industry and they're still working on their homes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's tricky. And this is like a personal bothering point for me too, where in the beginning, I think you have to be really, really careful with how you manage how a junior spends their time at the office. and now there's no one to hold them back if they're stuck on an issue. For example, they can't get Maya to work. I'm just naming something, right? And then they will spend. I've seen people spend like time after work. Well, even in the office back then, right? So we're still in the office. I've seen people spend like longer times after hours just to get Maya to work. And I think there was always this implication, if you're in the office, I would, or like other people would go to them and be like, hey, is there something wrong? Like, can we help? Right? There's that support network, but now it's just disconnected. And I honestly think that a lot of people go down this rabbit hole of just like, oh, I'll just do one more thing. And before they know it, it's like 11 at night and they have to go to sleep again. And I think that's really dangerous. So I think it depends on the person. Some people produce art when there's nobody there to disturb them, and on the other hand, some people drive energy from other people. Yeah. I agree, but then that's an interesting point. Because I agree, but then I wonder why you're in an office, right? Like at a company. Because if you purely want to create art and don't really get that much energy from other people, why would you look for a team? That makes sense. Maybe you're doing yourself a disservice by not going freelance or something. I don't know. This is a hard stance to take, right? Because there's so much gray zone in the middle of that. That you could be, yeah. I do get your point though. It's an interesting one. Because sometimes I have days where I'm just talking to people, like if we're open and honest about it. But yeah, prefer doing remote work. Yeah, but then let's have a look. Let's read it, right? Yeah, it's a balance, right? It's just, yeah, it's a balancing act where you need to have those times where you can just like focus on something because you enjoy it or you have to get shit done. But then there's also times where you might not be as productive because something's bothering you, and then it's just nice to be able to chat to someone. Personally, as a junior, if I had the chance again, I'd pick to start remote. I'd never pick to start remote. If I had the option, I'd go to the office for the first job, 100%. Yeah. But working from home is hard when you're new in the industry. Yeah, I can only imagine, right? But I can definitely get it. Yeah. It is really hard, yeah. Because I also think that, I mean, even in my situation, right? Like, I've been working in an office for like over 5 years now. And then, well, hold on, minus the COVID time. So let's say 3 years to round it off. And I always thought that I really wanted to go like freelance or like do something on my own and just focus on the art, right? And now that I'm doing it, I'm like, man, I do want to go to the office and like connect with people and like do all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, it's definitely a balance. But this is, like Paul said, like it's weird to call it a good thing, but like the good thing about COVID is that it gave me that opportunity, right? And like gave everyone that opportunity to experience it. Where, yeah, now at least we have something to compare it to. Where we can compare it to what we had before. Well, I mean, for the people that have been in the industry for a bit longer. And it's not just like a black and white thing. It's a combination of the two. Simple things like my Max license is broken, my Wi-Fi dongle is broken, and then no one, then because no one sees you sitting there doing nothing, no one treats you as priority to fix. Exactly, yeah. And that's also the thing, right? Like as a junior in the industry, you don't really have this perception of like how does this need to work? Like, is this normal? Like who do I ask? Who do I reach out to, right? There's all this pressure of this new environment that you need to normalize to. So it becomes like really tricky. Because I can just imagine that some people might not be as comfortable to reach out to other people with those kind of issues. Because especially the Wi-Fi dongle, right? It's so stupid almost that you almost feel stupid to ask a question about it. It just shows that remote is a possibility. Yep. You don't always have to pack up your life in a few boxes and move if you want to get a job. Yeah, I think it's gonna offer more opportunity for sure. It's gonna be interesting once, because this has been the big discussion. There's gonna be limitations to what an office will do. Because one of the things that I can think of is as soon as you work outside of the company's borders, then you're gonna be on a different contract than compared to the people that work within the borders of that country. So I don't know what that means in contractual terms, obviously. But yeah, maybe that means that the people that work outside of the borders of that country that the studio is in maybe have to be like under a freelance sort of contract. Especially for folks who live in low cost of living areas but get paid in dollars or euros, it can be a real opportunity. Yeah, I wonder, this is the thing that I wonder if that's going to be a thing. Because I feel like a company will have a look at that and they look at your location and then they'll adjust the prices to that location, right? So, man, might be a bit too skeptical on that, but they will probably try to get you for cheaper though. Some companies do, some don't. I honestly think that we're now in the period where you could do something like this because we're still finding out how it all works, right? Companies are a bit scrambled at the moment still, especially the bigger ones that have to do this on scale, right? So now might be the best moment to propose this and then see how that works. And if you're one of the early people that get this, you might get the most benefit out of it. But yeah, still it can be pretty good. Exactly. I've already seen a trend with where my friends work, not game dev, where he has a remote shop in a company based in London, but they're paying him less than a local in-office because they know he doesn't have the same expenses. Yeah, for sure. It's just common business sense, right? Like, why would you pay... I mean, common business sense. Like, why would you pay a person that's living in Poland as much as you were to do like a person living in London? Just to name an example. I mean, rural Poland. Let's not make it super generic. I'm honestly interested. I would love to explore that option myself at some point though. But then that's the thing that I'm currently struggling with is it's this question of I do love to see people, but let's say I move, let's say this is a possibility, right? I keep working here in the studio in Berlin, where I'm at currently, but I move to Belgium. I'm going to be even more disconnected from the team. So I think I will get, if I were to do that, I'll get to a point where I'm like, no, I can't do this. I'll need to move a bit closer to the office again so that at least I can go into work, I don't know, at least one time a week, or maybe a couple times a month or something like that, right? So yeah, it's interesting. I do want to give it a shot and then see what comes out of it. But yeah, we'll see where that goes. There's a lot in your country. Yeah, exactly. I suppose this all depends on your seniority level as well. Yeah. I guess it more depends on your... Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting point to bring up, right? Because my first thought was exactly like you said, Cairo. Like, the more senior you are, the more self-dependent, so they'd let you work remote more. But then, like you said as well just now, is that you're more likely to be needed in the office and also a more integral part of the team. So it's good to be visible more often than a junior, right? Because a senior needs to be connected to the team, and people need to well, it depends on what kind of route that you want to go on, but I think a senior always needs to be somewhat visible, needs to be there for the team, needs to be supportive for the juniors and like all the people coming in, right? It's something, I mean, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but like you have this leadership role almost. Yeah, I'm curious. So much stuff to think about with this, right? And that's, imagine the hassle that a company needs to go through to do all of this. Oh. I know a senior from Blizzard who just got approved for fully remote working, so it's definitely happening at bigger studios at least. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm curious where Ubisoft is going to land on that. Yeah, we'll see. All right, cool. We do have to get to some other questions, though. I love this discussion. There's so much stuff that I'm even thinking about and like trying to figure out still. So, yeah, I'm curious where this is going to go. Let's have a look. Before we move on, bigger companies could also shift offices, by the way. Well, and there's also the option of remote offices too, right? Where a company doesn't have to have a dedicated office in like the main part of I don't know, like Berlin, for example. But they can go to more like what you call it, like a decentralized office system, where they see that they have like a bunch of people living near Düsseldorf, for example, but they still work for the Berlin office. Then they might rent like a local office in Düsseldorf for people to come in as they want to go. That could also work. And that's probably one of the benefits that Ubisoft has, right? There's so many offices around the world that maybe that's a system that works for them. So that, yeah, I never thought about it that way. So that, let's say I move to a place where they also have like a Ubisoft office. So let's say the Philippines, like I decide to move there and like drastically bump down my wage, bump down my living expenses, but still work for the Berlin office. I wonder, oh god, I wonder how that will work. That's probably like a headache for HR that I just brought up, but walk-in offices all around the world. Yeah, I think that could be a potential option, huh? More like pubs. Okay, I'll go with that one. Yep, I like that idea. All right, but anyway, let's move on to the next thing. I feel like I'm just walking on a treadmill right now. So yeah, that was our talk about like job stability and job security that went into like the whole remote office working thing, right? So next anonymous question, and this is the last one before we dive into the community questions, and then we'll do a little bit of feedback too. How can one improve as a lighting artist? That is a good question, honestly. I am not a lighting artist myself, right? And even the feedback that we're going to discuss later is going to be about lighting. But I would say that what's important about lighting, it sort of has the same fundamentals as environment art itself. You have to be able to tell a story with your lighting, or like at least highlight the story that's already there. And I would say that that is probably the most important thing. So the lights that you add need to have some sort of meaning in the environment. Because yeah, you can light it up like it was realistic, right? You can add all the lights that you wanted in a scene where they would be realistically, but that doesn't tell a story. It doesn't tell you anything about this location. And it also has to together with that, it also has to set a mood, right? Which is also so tightly interlinked with the story. Because the story depends on a certain mood that you want to set, right? So those are probably the things that I would give as a takeaway for a lighting artist. A lighting artist specifically could probably give you way better things, or like a better explanation about the whole thing. But that is my intuition about it. Well, that's me. Okay. Well, it's not anonymous now. Yeah, it's a good question, but I would say that my experiences with lighting are a bit too limited to give you like a full answer. But it's a good question. All right, cool. Let's dive into some other questions from the chat now. This is from our Discord community. Let's have a look. The first question is from Leon. Seeing that sub-D modeling exercise posted on the Discord recently and knowing that many people are using booleans as well now, instead of purely modeling in subdivisions, are there any skills that you learned in school or during work that have already become irrelevant or way less relevant than they were when you first picked them up? Oh god. First one that comes to mind is doing a bake twice. So one average bake, one non-average bake, then take them into Photoshop and blend them together. So let me explain, right? For people that have used Marmoset, this is going to make a lot of sense because that's where the skew map comes in. Because it's basically doing the same thing. You're basically just erasing the stuff that you want to have from one bake and letting the other stuff from the other bake come through. The biggest example is always if you have bolts that are near a rounded surface or something like that. It doesn't have to be rounded, like just on the top of a cube. You would have to blend the bake that projects everything straight down with the bake that averages everything out. Because if you only use a bake that averages everything out, the bolts are going to be skewed towards the normals that you're baking towards. So that is one of the biggest things. And not having to do that manually, because you also have to you also have to imagine that you're doing this in X normal, right? Especially I did that in the beginning. So it's taking a bit of time to do a bake. and then you have to do like a second bake with like a different cage. Oh god, cage setups for like every model. Fucking hassle too. But yeah, then you would get them together, and then I would just take it into Photoshop, overlay them on top of each other, and start painting in which details I needed from one of the normals maps. Oh god, such a hassle thinking back at it. Oh. Marmoset still gives you the option to bake 2 AOs with different settings, so maybe it's not completely gone. It's not completely gone, no. It's still useful. And you still have to do it in certain occasions, but it's just way easier now. Like, it's literally just one click, right? Yeah, sounds like it would take 10 times longer. Exactly. Exactly. Let's think about something else, right? Oh, I mean, I joined the industry when PBR was a thing. So PBR was coming up at that point. And oh god, what kind of maps did we use before that? Albedo, Specular. God damn it, I can't even remember the maps that we used. I mean, but that entire pipeline, or the way that it was calculated and rendered out, is mostly irrelevant now. There are specific cases where no. Maybe in hand painted you could still use the spec and gloss has also been adapted to PBR. So that's the thing. That's why I was struggling just now to talk about that, because that was the first thing. But spec and gloss is also like a PBR version, just does the calculation in a different way. But yeah, the maps that we used before, I can't think of them now. What was the system that we used before PBR? I think it also had spec and gloss in it. It was just calculated differently when you put it into the renderer, and it kind of looked off. It wasn't correct, or like trying to be correct. Always confused about older games because I only know PBR. Oh, in the meantime, we got a couple of follows as well. CK7200, thanks for the follow. Spire Interactive, I Like Cats 8000, and Twitch 345. Oh, Modi G, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. But yeah, what else? Oh, there must be so much stuff though. I also baked in Turtle. Turtle is, I don't know if it's an embedded baker inside of Maya, but I used that for a while. So baking inside of your 3D program, that's probably no longer relevant at this point either. There was some cool stuff that you could do with the Turtle baker that at the time you couldn't do with Substance Painter. You can bake opacity, for example. You can bake base color into it as well. So say you have like a high poly with base color attached to it, you can bake that onto like a low poly. That was pretty cool, but that was so specific, and there's probably way better workflows for that now. Yeah, like you already mentioned, right? Like booleans for the hard surface workflow. Yeah, other than that, I think that's mostly it. Like especially the ones that I can think of. Baking opacity in Substance Painter is still kind of hacky. Yeah, I know. I feel like Maya baking could be really powerful. It was, yeah, it's freaking confusing for a beginner. Like it's not as friendly as you're used to in Substance Painter. That's why people don't use it, right? It's just not user friendly. Any skills that I learned in school became less relevant. I learned to paint manual maps. So it gave me, I don't think it's becoming less relevant, but I think it's an interesting one to bring up because it teaches you how to understand maps. So painting the base color yourself and then trying to get a specular and gloss map from the base color and then using the NVIDIA filters to create normal maps from the layers that you had. With normal painting as well. Normal painting was definitely a thing, especially when you had Endu. Like you could paint in Photoshop and then it would convert that to like a normal map. Sort of real time. It wasn't real time, but close enough. So yeah, we did paint normal maps. But yeah. Oh, so interesting going back. And then Iwana asked sort of the same question, or like relevant to it, where it forces me to go back into history a bit. Hold on, let's see. Leon just posted something. A friend of mine does that with photography. Told him to give Substance Alchemist a try instead of doing everything in Photoshop. They haven't changed back since. That's cool. Yeah, I still need to give Alchemist a try. The thing they changed is that they bought Substance. All right. You want to ask a question? You may have been asked this, but can you remember what your first weeks were in the industry? Were you excited or nervous? It's probably a healthy dose of two. Like, I wasn't overly nervous, but I mean, there were definitely moments where I was more nervous than other times when I was getting tested, for example, or when I had to do like a more organic prop or something that was out of my comfort zone. That always made me nervous, but I always like to accept the challenge of it. Like I didn't really stay away from that. I always said yes and then thought about it later. And I think that's an important one. What do you mean when you were tested? So, for example, one of the first prompts that I can remember that was a really big test were the crash test dummies that we had in Planet Coaster. They were basically, how should I say it? They were like humans, but then converted to these plastic water-filled components, right? So, for example, if you can imagine like these barriers that they use to stop cars from going off the road, usually they're filled with water. That was like the same sort of thing that we were trying to do with the crash test dummies. Actually, let me bring it up. Just show it instead of just talking about it. Might make a bit more sense. I don't even think I have like a separate post. Do I even have a post with them in? Okay, let me quickly look it up. And it goes to dummies. I'm finding all kinds of good shit in here. Okay, let's have a look here. So, oh my god, the image is so blurry. Let me just quickly do this. So these were the kind of things that I needed to build. So they're like these water-filled mannequins, basically. And it was really, really elaborate for the stuff that I was doing at the time, right? And just having to bake it all down and to get it looking really good. That was completely out of my comfort zone. And I still wanted to do it though. And that took me a while, and I had to talk to seniors and leads about it too. Just because I couldn't get certain things to look right, and I was asking for help a lot. But yeah, that's probably one of the things that I remember from that time. It's just being tested about with new things, right? Like even sometimes when I was put on the foliage team, I was doing foliage outside of work, but I never had done that professionally. So it's like one of those steps again. But yeah, I found oh god, sorry, my throat is killing me. Yeah, that was quite an interesting one. And there's actually a document that I found yesterday on like my old hard drives. Is my first 2 weeks in the industry, I was keeping a diary of what I was doing. Okay, let me read out this section. I haven't read this through myself. Self-reflection of week 1 of my time in the industry. As I entered the lobby of Frontier on the first day, I was 45 minutes early. Normally, I'm super stressed when entering a new place like this, but for some reason I wasn't that stressed, as I normally am. When I entered the room where I currently sit, I really love to see everyone working so passionate on this project. Also, everyone is so friendly here and so relaxed, even though it's 3 weeks for alpha release. So it was like a big deadline coming up for Planet Coaster. I was still a bit stressed that my work tempo isn't fast enough, but this is getting better on a really rapid rate. And working in the office is a lot more focused than at home. Oh, that's an interesting point. So yeah, there's like I did like a retrospective like each day, I think. It's pretty interesting to see this. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I have like the entire document here. Like every day I would write up like what I did during that day. And it's unfortunate I didn't really record like how I felt, or like I didn't went into details about that. It was more like what I was doing during that day. But it's still pretty interesting regardless. I should have a look at some of the first stuff that I was doing. Internship, because I got like some PSDs with them as well. I haven't looked at them. I think these were some of the first props that I was doing. Oh no, this is some boring documentation. Never mind. Never mind. Yeah. Let's go back to the question though. Let's have a look. First few weeks in the industry were like, yeah, I mean, like I was just reading out, right? Like I remember that I was definitely stressed at some points. Like even though I'm pretending that I'm not in that one, I can still remember that I was stressed at certain points when it was closer to a deadline or something, or when I had to talk to someone really important, right? As stupid as it sounds, but sometimes that might stress you out as well. But in general, it went really well. I was just really excited to finally get into the industry and get working on something, right? And to prove that I was going to be like a games artist. I think that was just really cool. Yeah, I would definitely say that I was more excited than I was nervous. Nah, I think that's a fair thing to say. All right, cool. Thanks so much for the question, Ioana. That's it's always fun to do this nostalgia trip. We were we were looking at some older pictures yesterday, or just like the first stuff, that I did in the industry, or like even before that as a student, right? Just going through like old work. Oh god, there's so much stuff in there. Like my first environment was done in UDK, which is like before Unreal Engine 4. So I guess that can go into your question, Leon. Like UDK is no longer relevant now. Okay. Let's go into the next question. Cairo, when you were taking part in interviewing potential candidates earlier this year and last year, were there substantial differences to the process who got the job because of COVID? So I have to say that I haven't been a part of the interview process for a long while because we haven't hired artists for a long while now. So I can't really say on that question. I would say from what I know how we did it before that, I think the main thing is just if we're really interested in your profile and we already had a first interview, what we usually do is we fly you over to the studio and we let you get to know everyone, right? And we give you like a studio tour and all that stuff. That doesn't happen. But I would imagine that all the other stuff is still the same. Maybe... Yeah, this is an interesting question that I don't know the answer to myself, but maybe we allow you to be remote from that point on if we were to hire you. And then maybe you move to the office when we go into this hybrid model or whatever we're going to do in a couple of months. So yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I guess we all start with a donut now. There's still people not using Blender. What you mean? It's not industry standard yet, so... I was a joke, people. It is. Speak for yourself, I started with horribly overscoped Skyrim mods. Ah, that's cool, man. That's cool. So yeah, I'm sorry that I can't answer the question, Cairo. But maybe in the future. It would be interesting to compare it nonetheless, though. Okay, next question from Fateh. What part of the environment do you love doing the most? Everything. It's weird. I can't be specific with that one because if I get too specific, I get bored of it. So I got to this conclusion where I love doing the complete environment, and that I love jumping around between things. So there are days when I'm just like, look, I really want to just texture stuff, and then I'll do like a full day of texturing, or I really want to model stuff, and I'll do that. And honestly, well, if I don't skip around your question, maybe the thing that I love to do the most is composing the image and like building it myself. That's probably the thing that I love to do the most when it comes to environment art. So yeah, good question. Nice and short. George, how much time should an artist need to make a unique asset and an asset out of a trim sheet? How much time should an artist need to make? I mean, this is a tricky one because it depends on the asset, right? Usually the... Let me think about it. Usually the unique one takes longer to make it with a trim sheet. How long is a piece of string? Exactly, Kyle. So usually a unique asset can be quicker because... Wait. I need to think about this myself. It's probably quicker to make something out of a trim sheet. But a trim sheet is made for like making an entire environment around it, right? You're not gonna make a trim sheet that's specific to a unique asset. That would be silly. Because in that case, you could probably just use titleable textures or something else like that. You're not gonna make a trim sheet that's only gonna be used on one texture or like one asset. So, yeah. I would say if I had to pick one of the two, making an asset with a trim sheet is way quicker because you already have the texture there ready to go. You don't have to worry about baking and all that specific texturing. So it's way quicker to do it with a trim sheet. Assuming that you have all the trim sheets and titleables you use first, it would take a lot longer. If you have to make them, you mean? I don't think so, honestly. I could probably make a trim sheet quicker than I could probably do like a really detailed unique texture. So again, I mean, we're talking about something... We're almost comparing apples to oranges, right? Because I could quickly bash out like titleables and trim sheets. But then to really get all the detail in like a nicely unique texture and get the bakes correct and building a high poly, then building a low poly and doing all that kind of jazz will probably take me as an example, right? I'm looking at it through my lens. Without a quality bar, it's not so really easy to answer. Exactly. It's a difficult one. So let's say that in general, it might be quicker to do it with a trim sheet. But it totally depends on what you're looking for. It totally depends on, like Leon said, the quality bar that you want to set. It all depends on a lot of stuff, right? So I think that's it for all the questions this week. Thank you so much for all the questions. I really appreciate it. Let's have a look because Modi asked some questions here. Would you be making the unique asset specific to the trim sheet? Whoa, what? Would you make it the unique asset specific to that trim sheet? No, you make a trim sheet just so that you can reuse it, right? Like it's either one or the other. You don't have to go through like the unique asset with like baking all the information down to then slap a trim sheet on top of it. If that is what you mean, if I understand the question correctly. And then also to answer your earlier question, would you say it's always better to start by creating smaller dioramas? 100%. Don't try to build worlds. Proof test your work with smaller dioramas and then build from there, from that point on. Oh. Okay. Cool. All right, let me pick one image here. And then add that here. I need to move over my drawing tablet as well. Hydrate. Thanks, Raj. Could have used that. Let's have a look. Let's dive into the feedback then. This again is about lighting art, or like, well, lighting your environment. So let's have a look. Where's my pen? Then we move to here. Yes. Go easy on the lighting, guy. Well, look, this has to come with a caveat, right? I'm not a lighting artist myself, I'll try to do my best to help you out. The main thing is going to remain the same that I was bringing up before. You want to add lighting to emphasize a certain mood or a certain story that you want to tell, right? Where's my pen? Yeah, there we go. So right now, what kind of story do you want to tell with this thing? What happened here? What are you trying to convey with the lighting? Because as you're typing, a Joker side vs a cyberpunk side. Okay, cool. Characters coming from both ends. Okay, that's an interesting one. Because it definitely feels like you were trying to do something like that with the different colors that you have here, right? But if you don't have the characters to solidify that, it makes it tricky because it almost looks like the colors are random at this point. Like, I could tell that this section was a bit more cyberpunk and then this one was a little bit more monotone. There's also more to the right side of this frame, but I'm not showing it in this picture. So yeah. In this case, man, this is a tricky one. Because if you're doing the characters, then it could work. But if you don't do the characters, like this is super confusing. You have two clashing elements, which I would probably just consolidate into like one core idea. Where you could have like a cyberpunk alleyway that's downtrodden, right? Like this is like an abandoned alleyway in like a cyberpunk world. That could work. And then these lights could work. And then you just have to propagate them over on this side as well. But right now, the two elements coming together are just so confusing. I kind of got what you were trying to do with this. Because they are the typical, what would you say, like the more typical cyberpunk colors that you would expect. But yeah, I would then also propagate them to the other side. I think it's one of those things where you're trying to do too much. And because again, I'm not a lighting artist, I'm gonna make this relevant to environment art, right? What sometimes happens in environment art is that people will think about an idea and it's like, okay, like I have this hut on a mountain, right? It's like a mountain with a hut on it. Okay, so what is that hut gonna be? It's like, okay, it's like the second layer is gonna be like an alchemist, and he's doing some stuff in that hut to like he's like it's almost like a hermit practitioner, right? Like an alchemist that is like, I don't know, by himself, like solo. And then how can we make this more interesting, right? And then they add like this third layer on top of it that it was recently there was this war with this warring faction, and they went to this alchemist because he had like explosive materials, right? So they went to this alchemist, but then something happened there where like a piece, like a bear or something came into the picture and then surprised the soldiers. It's like, oh yeah, then we add this bear to it. It's like all these layers are just a bit too much. So usually what really works well is simplicity in pictures. Don't try to do a lot of stories at the same time. Just keep it really simple. And that's the thing that I'm trying to say with this one is don't try to do two things. Just stick to one thing. And keep it simple, keep it focused, and keep it relevant on the study you want to do. Does that help? I mean, it's a bit limited because, yeah, not a lighting artist by trade, right? Absolutely. George likes the lights on the right side. Yeah, it depends on what you want to say, right? I think that's the thing. Both things could work. I just think that they clash together. In my personal opinion. Because now, let me bring up another picture to get like the full view. It's part of a course. Okay, cool. Look, I think with the characters it could work. I would be interested, maybe if you want to emphasize that this is like a fight between two sides. Maybe you could do something with the middle. Where right now you have the staircase, right? And instead of lighting that one up, maybe you could leave it dark. Because what that does is that you have the separation of like these two spaces. And then the fight can happen around this part, right? Maybe that's something that could work. Because then you're just emphasizing like one side against the other one. Hey, Relics, welcome to the chat. Yeah, I think this could work. Yeah, that's where they meet. Yeah, I thought so. But then, yeah, cutting out this part and making it dark could probably work better than having some filler light here. Because then, yeah, again, you're just creating this space in between, right? Creating this border between the two. Yeah, cool. Good luck, man. Good luck with the course and keep us up to date how it's going. All right. That was a bit out of the comfort zone, but it's all good. All right, cool. That wasn't too bad. I really like the part where you mentioned go for a generic mood rather than to try to light every specific event. Really helpful stuff. I'm glad it helped. What I would probably do in this case is, instead of only asking me, I mean, I don't know if you asked anyone else, so I'm making an assumption here, but also ask a lighting artist, see what they think about it. And send them a picture, tell them like, look, I want to have this fight between two characters, right? And it's this cyberpunk side vs the Joker side. Tell the story behind it too. And with that context, let's see what they have to say about it. Because I would be honestly really interested in what they have to say about it too. Really helpful. I'm glad I could help. Even with my limited lighting knowledge. Awesome. No worries. Happy to help. All right, cool. So we went through a ton of good questions today. We went through this really cool piece that you're working on, MotiG, and I appreciate for sending that in. Again, for people that are new to this is going to be a weekly thing, right? Same time, same place, every week. If you want to send in your own artwork, do that through the Beyondextent community. We have like a separate channel where you can just drop in your questions and your work every Friday, and then we'll critique them on Sunday. Like the channel opens on Friday and then just closes again on like Sunday evening, just to make it a little bit more, a little shorter. So yeah, if you're interested in getting feedback, a paint over, or just some questions in, feel free to just drop them in there, and then we'll discuss it. Awesome. But for now, I'm gonna do some more personal work, so I'm gonna be helping out. It was good to talk to everyone. It was a really busy chat this Sunday, and I appreciate you all being here. If you want to check out more resources and all that kind of environment art goodness, you can always go to beyondextent.com, check out all the stuff that we've been doing, and yeah, hope to see you in the community if you're not already in there. So with that, I'll leave you guys here, and have a nice Sunday, everyone. See ya!
He's treating